Chapter 1. The Invitation to Peril, London, October 1932. The fog clung to the cobblestones of Whitechapel like a reluctant lover, veiling the gas lamps in a shroud of amber haze. Hercule Poirot, that inimitable Belgian detective of fastidious habits and unparalleled deductive prowess, stepped from his modest flat on Whitehaven Mansions with the precision of a man who believed disorder in one's attire was but the first step toward chaos in the mind. His patent leather shoes gleamed under the streetlight, his moustaches waxed to lethal points, and his Inverness cape draped over one arm like a conquered flag. In his gloved hand he clutched a single envelope, cream vellum, sealed with a blob of crimson wax imprinted with the crest of a rampant lion. It had arrived that very morning, delivered by a boy who stammered something about urgent from the Caledonian Railway, before vanishing into the mist. Poirot had examined it with the scrutiny reserved for a suspect's alibi. The postmark from King's Cross Station, the handwriting elegant yet hurried, the contents a tantalizing riddle. Mon cher Monsieur Poirot, rumours of your genius precede you like the dawn. I find myself in a predicament most delicate, aboard the Caledonian Express this very eve. London to Edinburgh, departing at 8 sharp. Secrets whisper in the corridors of this iron beast, and I fear one may prove fatal. Join me, if you will, in compartment A, first class. Discretion is assured. Peril, alas, is not. Your unknown admirer, E. Hargrove Poirot, paused at the corner, inhaling the damp air laced with coal smoke and distant fish from Billingsgate. E. Hargrove, he murmured to himself, his accent curling around the syllables like smoke from a Gauloise's. The name evoked a vague echo. Sir Edward Hargrove? No, Reginald, perhaps. A baronet of some repute in the city. Whispers of scandals involving shipping fortunes and indiscreet liaisons. But why summon him? And on a train of all places? Trains, with their rhythmic clatter and locked compartments, were veritable theatres for intrigue. Poirot's little grey cells stirred, as they always did at the scent of mystery. A hansom cab rattled to a halt before him, the horse snorting plumes of breath into the chill. "King's Cross, driver," Poirot instructed, settling into the worn leather seat with a sigh of contentment. As the cab jolted forward, he tapped the envelope against his knee. This E. Hargrove, he plays a dangerous game, writing such a note. But Hercule Poirot, he does not refuse an invitation to the dance. The journey through the labyrinthine streets was swift, the fog parting like courtiers before a king. King's Cross Station loomed, a cavern of iron and steam, porters wheeling trunks the size of coffins, ladies in fox fur stoles chattering behind veils of cigarette smoke. Poirot alighted, tipping the driver with a florin and a nod of imperial grace. The Caledonian Express waited on Platform 7, a gleaming leviathan of polished mahogany and brass fittings, its engine exhaling impatient puffs of vapour. First-class carriages gleamed under the electric lights, promising velvet cushions and silver service, a far cry from the third-class sardine tins Poirot had endured in his younger, less celebrated days. He presented his ticket, a first-class single, procured that afternoon by his invaluable valet Georges, to the ticket inspector, a man with a face like weathered oak. "Compartment C, sir. Mind the step." Poirot boarded with the ease of a man accustomed to such luxuries, though his eyes missed nothing. The flicker of a match in the shadows of the platform, a lady's gloved hand lingering too long on a gentleman's sleeve, the muffled argument between two porters over a monogrammed valise. As the guard's whistle pierced the din and the train lurched forward, with a symphony of couplings, Poirot made his way along the corridor. Nodding to fellow passengers who averted their gazes, his fame was a double-edged sword, inspiring awe and a touch of unease. Compartment A was at the end, its door ajar, spilling golden light onto the Persian runner. Poirot knocked once, twice, with the knuckle of his cane. "Entrez, if you please." The door swung open to reveal a figure silhouetted against the window. Tall, broad-shouldered, clad in a smoking jacket of midnight velvet. Sir Reginald Hargrove turned, his face a map of jowls and imperial whiskers, eyes sharp as a barrister's cross-examination. Beside him stood a younger man, sallow-cheeked and fidgety, twisting a signet ring on his pinky. "Ah, Monsieur Poirot, the very man. Come in, before the ghosts of the rails overhear us." Hargrove's voice boomed, laced with the bluff heartiness of a man who dined at the Savoy and brooked no contradiction. He extended a hand heavy with a signet ring of his own, the lion crest glinting. "Sir Reginald Hargrove, at your service, and this is my nephew Felix Crowe. Bit of a city chap, handles my ledgers when he's not losing at Ascot." Crowe bobbed a curt bow, his smile thin as a razor. "Pleased, sir. Uncle's told me all about your exploits." Poirot inclined his head, stepping inside and closing the door with a soft click. The compartment was a cocoon of opulence, 2 berths folded like secrets against the walls, a mahogany washstand stocked with crystal decanters, and a small table bearing a half-empty bottle of claret. Through the window, London's sprawl blurred into twilight fields, the train's rhythm a hypnotic clack-clack that set one's teeth on edge. "But of course," Poirot replied, removing his cape and draping it over the armrest with meticulous care. He settled into the plush seat opposite Hargrove, his eyes, those twin beacons of perception, scanning the room. A faint scent of lavender water, perhaps from a lady's handkerchief tucked in the folds of the curtain. A crease in the carpet, as if trod by an impatient boot. "You write of peril, Monsieur le Baronet. Secrets that whisper fatality. Hercule Poirot is intrigued. But first, I must ask, why me? And why this express to Edinburgh, where the heather blooms and the grudges, they say, run deep as the locks?" Hargrove chuckled, a rumble like gravel in a tumbler, pouring 3 glasses of claret with a steady hand. "Sharp as a stiletto, eh? Truth is, Poirot, I've enemies enough to fill a debtor's prison. Shipping rivals, jilted lovers, that sort. But this—" He leaned forward, voice dropping to a conspiratorial hiss. "This is personal. Blackmail, you see. Letters, vicious things, arrived last month. Demanding a king's ransom to keep silent on a certain indiscretion from my youth. Involves a lady, of course. And now, whispers aboard this train, someone knows, someone here." Crowe shifted uncomfortably, sipping his wine like medicine. "Uncle, perhaps we shouldn't—" "Nonsense, boy. Poirot's the soul of discretion." Hargrove waved him silent, fixing the detective with a stare. "You'll stay the night, unravel it. The full journey's tomorrow. Edinburgh by dawn after. My treat. Champagne supper in the dining car, and a purse fat enough to make Midas envious." Poirot twirled his moustache, savouring the wine's bouquet. "A robust Bordeaux, not without merit. I am no magician, monsieur, to conjure solutions from thin air, but the little grey cells, they work best in confinement, no? This train, it is a locked room on wheels, perfect for revelations." As the train gathered speed, hurtling into the velvet night, a knock echoed at the door. The conductor, a wiry Scotsman with a brogue like bagpipes, poked his head in. "Evening, gents. Supper's at 7 in the diner, and Ma'am in B sends apologies. She's indisposed." Hargrove grunted, Lady Eleanor, no doubt. Widow's weeds and all of that. Tell her to join us later. Misery loves company." The conductor vanished, and silence fell, broken only by the train's relentless pulse. Poirot leaned back, his mind a whirlwind of possibilities. Blackmail, indiscretions, a cast of shadows yet to emerge. Little did he know, the Caledonian Express carried not just passengers, but payloads of envy and revenge, hurtling toward a dawn stained with blood. Outside, the fog of London yielded to star-pricked skies, and Hercule Poirot, sipping his claret, felt the familiar thrill. The game, as ever, was afoot. Chapter 2. Whispers in the dining car. The Caledonian Express devoured the miles with voracious appetite, its wheels singing a monotonous dirge over the rails that cleaved the English countryside like a surgeon's scalpel. Twilight had deepened into a starless void, pricked only by the occasional flare of a signalman's lamp, as if the night itself conspired to shroud the passengers' secrets. Hercule Poirot, ever the connoisseur of human folly, had excused himself from compartment A with a murmur of digestive delicacy. Claret, though fine, was no substitute for the subtleties of observation. He made his way to the dining car, cane tapping, a rhythmic counterpoint to the train's sway. His eyes alight with the anticipation of a sommelier appraising a suspect vintage. The dining car was a floating palace of Edwardian splendor. Starched linen cloths agleam under shaded electric globes, silver cutlery winking like conspirators, and walls panelled in burled walnut that whispered of forgotten empires. Waiters in crisp white jackets glided like spectres, bearing trays laden with consommé and Dover sole, while the air hummed with the low murmur of conversation. Clipped vowels from the home counties, a hint of Scots burr from the northbound souls. Poirot paused at the entrance, his gaze sweeping the room with the precision of a watchmaker aligning gears. 8 souls at the long central table, plus a solitary diner in the corner booth nursing a brandy. Hargrove's party, no doubt. The baronet had insisted on the full complement for supper. He spotted them immediately. Hargrove at the head, expansive as a pasha, his napkin tucked into his collar like a battle standard. Beside him, Felix Crowe hunched over his menu, his thin lips moving silently as if reciting stock prices. Across sat a woman in widow's black, her pearls a noose of lustre against her throat. Lady Eleanor Hargrove, the conductor had implied, though the name evoked no immediate scandal in Poirot's encyclopedic memory of matrimonial mishaps. Flanking her were 2 others, a vivacious creature with bobbed hair and lips painted crimson, fanning herself with a programme from the previous season's Drury Lane, and a bespectacled gentleman in a tweed suit, his fingers steepled like a surgeon contemplating an incision. Poirot approached with a slight bow, his voice a velvet murmur. "Mesdames, messieurs, if I am not intruding, Sir Reginald has been so kind as to extend the hospitality of his table." Hargrove boomed a welcome, half rising in his seat. "Poirot! Capital, capital! Pull up a chair, next to the lovely Vivian here. Miss Lark of the stage, the Scarlet Pimpernel revival, you know. And this is Dr. Elias Thorne, my personal sawbones. Keeps the old ticker ticking, what?" Vivian Lark extended a hand gloved to the elbow in Nile green satin, her eyes, kohl-rimmed and mischievous, appraising Poirot as if he were a prop from one of her melodramas. "Monsieur Poirot, the detective extraordinaire. I've devoured your cases like chocolates at intermission. Do sit. The soul is divine, and the company's tolerable." Poirot kissed her hand with Gallic flourish, settling into the banquette with a rustle of starched napkin. "Enchanté, mademoiselle. And Dr. Thorne, your name, it suggests a man of science, of precision. Like myself, no? Thorne adjusted his spectacles, his smile as thin as a scalpel's edge. A man in his 50s, with the lean frame of one who rationed both calories and confidences. His tie-pin bore the insignia of the Royal College of Surgeons. Precision is the surgeon's creed, Monsieur Poirot, though in my line one often encounters irregularities. The human heart, after all, is a treacherous organ. Lady Eleanor inclined her head, her voice a rustle of taffeta and restrained grief. She was handsome in the manner of faded porcelain, cheeks rouged just enough to defy the years, hair coiled in a chignon that spoke of governesses and garden parties. A pleasure, monsieur. Reginald speaks highly of your talents, though I confess I prefer mysteries resolved off the page. This journey has me quite fatigued already. The soup arrived, steaming in porcelain bowls emblazoned with the railway's crest, a thistle entwined with a crown. As spoons dipped and crystal clinked, the conversation meandered like the Thames at low tide, the latest scandal involving a certain MP and a chorus girl. Vivian's eyes sparkled with insider glee. The plummeting pound against the dollar, Crow's domain delivered in clipped monosyllables, and the unseasonable chill presaging a harsh winter, Thorne's meteorological musing laced with a hint of Highland nostalgia. But Poirot, sipping his vichyssoise with the discernment of a critic, noted the undercurrents, the whispers beneath the waves. Hargrove's laughter rang too hearty when Vivian teased him about his youthful indiscretions, his hand lingering a fraction too long on the champagne flute. Crow shot his uncle a glance sharp as a ledger's red ink, while Lady Eleanor's fork paused mid-air at the mention of old flames, her knuckles whitening around the stem of her glass. And Thorne? He observed them all with the detachment of a pathologist, his eyes flickering to a faint scar on Hargrove's cuff, a nick perhaps from a hunting knife or a closer shave. "Tell me, Lady Eleanor," Poirot ventured, dabbing his lips with precision, "you travel to Edinburgh for pleasure, or for reconciliation? The North has a way of stirring the ghosts of yesteryear." She met his gaze steadily, though a tremor betrayed her poise. "Family matters, monsieur. My late husband's estates require attention, tiresome legalities. Reginald was kind enough to accompany me, though his business detains him in the city more often than not." Her eyes flicked to Hargrove, a shadow crossing her features like cloud over the moon. One grows accustomed to solitude. Hargrove guffawed, slapping the tablecloth. "Solitude be damned, Eleanor. This trip's a lark. Bridge tournament in the lounge car later, and Vivian's promised to dazzle us with her impressions. Eh, Doctor? You'll join? Keep us from keeling over mid-rubber?" Thorne's response was a non-committal hum, his attention diverted by the arrival of the fish course. A glistening sole amandine, garnished with lemon twists like sly smiles. Bridge requires partnership, Sir Reginald. Trust even, not always a commodity in short supply these days. Vivian leaned forward, her décolletage a calculated distraction, voice dropping to a conspiratorial purr. "Oh, Doctor, you're too morbid. Though I must say, trains like this, they're positively theatrical, locked away with strangers, secrets jostling elbows in the corridor. One half expects a body in the baggage car by Act 3. The table fell into a ripple of uneasy laughter, Hargrove's the loudest, though Poirot detected the hollow note beneath it, like a drum stretched too taut. Crow buried his nose in his wine, and Lady Eleanor toyed with her pearls, the beads clicking softly as rosary stones. Poirot's little grey cells hummed. Here was a tableau vivant of tensions, motives sketched in the margins of polite chatter. blackmail's shadow loomed, but whose hand held the pen? The actress's flair for deception? The doctor's guarded precision? Or the widow's veiled sorrow? As the sorbets were cleared, lemon and raspberry, tart as unspoken accusations, a soft chime sounded from the corridor. The steward announcing bedtime turndowns. Hargrove rose, tossing his napkin like a gauntlet. To the lounge, then. Cards and cognac await. Poirot, you'll grace us? Mais oui, Poirot replied, his smile enigmatic as a sphinx. The night is young, and the revelations, they too have their hour. The party dispersed in a flurry of good nights, but Poirot lingered, signalling for coffee. Black, strong, Turkish if possible. Alone at last, he gazed out at the hurtling darkness, the train's lanterns carving golden paths through the void. Whispers in the dining car, indeed. But whispers, like steam from the engine, dissipated unless captured. And Hercule Poirot, he intended to bottle them all. As he sipped, a figure passed the window's reflection. A slight woman, in a dove-grey coat, valise in hand, hesitating at the door to compartment B. Miss Clara Voss, the governess perhaps. Unseen at supper, yet her shadow had fallen across the evening script. Poirot's moustache twitched. The cast assembled. The curtain, it seemed, was rising. Chapter 3. The Midnight Toast. The lounge car of the Caledonian Express was a sybarite's reverie rendered in motion. Low-slung armchairs upholstered in damask the colour of aged cognac. A mahogany bar stocked with decanters that caught the lamplight like captured sunsets. And a gramophone in the corner crooning a foxtrot from some forgotten revue. The air was thick with the mingled scents of Turkish tobacco, beeswax polish, and the faint illicit tang of spilled absinthe. A perfume that spoke of indiscretions yet to unfold. Hercule Poirot entered with the measured tread of a diplomat navigating a minefield, his cane serving as both prop and probe, testing the temper of the evening. The gathering had assembled with the punctuality of thespians awaiting their cue. Hargrove ensconced in the largest wingback, a cigar clamped between his teeth like a conqueror's sceptre. Felix Crowe perched on the ottoman, shuffling a deck of cards with the nervous energy of a man awaiting audit. Lady Eleanor on a settee, her black lace shawl draped like a widow's veil, a half-finished embroidery hoop idle in her lap, Vivian Lark reclining dramatically against the bar. A cigarette holder poised like a diva's wand. And Dr. Thorne standing sentinel by the window, nursing a balloon glass of brandy as if it were a specimen under glass. The governess, Miss Clara Voss, was absent, tucked away in her compartment with a novel and a thermos of Ovaltine, the steward had murmured, leaving the circle incomplete, a pentagon of prickling suspicions. "Ah, Poirot, the oracle arrives," Hargrove bellowed, gesturing with his cigar, ash scattering like confetti from a funeral. "Come, join the fray. We're for bridge, but first, a toast to absent friends and present foes, eh? Steward, the champagne. It Paul Roger, the good stuff." The steward, a young man with the haunted eyes of one who had seen too many late-night quarrels, materialized with a silver bucket, cradling frost-kissed bottles. Flutes chimed as they filled, bubbles rising like unspoken regrets. The gramophone scratched to a halt mid-chorus, leaving only the train's relentless clackety-clack to underscore the moment. Poirot accepted a glass with a nod, his eyes, sharp as a ferret's in a henhouse, cataloguing the tableau. Vivian's rouge deepened in the amber glow, but her laughter carried a brittle edge, like glass under strain. Crowe's fingers, splayed on the cards, betrayed a tremor. Thorne's gaze lingered on the doctor's own reflection in the pane, as if diagnosing a malady of the soul. And Lady Eleanor. She raised her flute with mechanical grace, but her eyes, when they met Hargrove's, held the chill of a Highland frost. "Gentlemen and ladies of lethal charm," Hargrove intoned, rising with the creak of his +4s, glass aloft. His voice filled the car, booming over the rail's rumble like a town crier at executioner's hour. To the Caledonian Express, swift as justice, unyielding as the law, and to me, Sir Reginald Hargrove, master of cargoes from Calcutta to Clydebank, who bends the winds of fortune to his will. Why, without my ships, half the empire's trade would grind to a halt. Remember that, when you sip your tea or don your woolens, it's Hargrove's hand that steers the helm. The toast elicited a smattering of applause. Vivian's the most theatrical, her free hand fluttering like a moth to flame. Brava, Reggie! Or should I say bravo? Though one wonders if the winds ever blow back. A squall here, a reef there. Hargrove's laugh was a gale, but Poirot noted the flicker in his eyes. A momentary squint, as if sighting an iceberg on the horizon. Squalls be damned, my dear. I've weathered worse than a chorus girl's caprice. Ask young Felix here. Lost a packet on the exchange last month, courtesy of my rival's whispers. But Uncle Reggie, he turns the tide. Invested in those Brazilian rubber plantations, you know. Millions by Yuletide, mark my words. Crow forced a smile, dealing the cards with a snap that echoed like a whip-crack. Quite, uncle. Though the markets are fickle, mistress. One day you're long, the next you're exposed. His voice dipped on the final word, laden with implication. And he dealt Poirot a hand face down on the low table. Queen high, a middling prospect. The game commenced in fits and starts. Bids rising and falling like the countryside beyond the rain-streaked windows. Now a blur of hedgerows and huddled sheep. Vivian partnered with Hargrove, her bids flamboyant. 3 no trumps, a grand slam of the heart, darling. While Thorn and Lady Eleanor formed a staid alliance, the doctor's leads as methodical as sutures. Poirot, paired with Crow, played conservatively, his discards deliberate, each card a probe into the player's psyches. Mon Dieu, Poirot murmured during a lull, as Thorn trumped a trick with surgical precision. Bridge, it is like life, no? Partnerships forged in haste, betrayals concealed in the dummy's hand. Tell me, Dr. Thorn, you who mend the broken, have you ever revised a diagnosis mid-game? Thorn's lips thinned, his fingers tracing the rim of his glass. Diagnoses are facts, Monsieur Poirot, not fancies. Though facts, alas, can be obscured. A shadow on the plate, a symptom misattributed. One operates on probabilities, but the knife reveals the truth. Lady Eleanor laid down a low club, her voice soft as falling petals. Truth is a luxury, Doctor. Some prefer the veil. Reginald, dear, your lead. Do try not to finesse us into oblivion. Hargrove grunted, tossing a spade with cavalier force. Veils and vapours, women and their mysteries. Speaking of which, Vivian, that little contretemps in Monty last spring, the one with the Italian count? I smoothed it over, you know. A word in the right ear, a cheque in the wrong pocket. Gratitude, my dear? Vivian's cigarette smoke curled like a serpent, her eyes narrowing to slits. Gratitude? From a man who collects favours like postage stamps? Oh, Reggie, you're too kind, but stamps can be counterfeited. Pass me the ashtray, Felix. Your uncle's smoke is choking the drama. The air thickened, the banter curdling into something sharper, more serpentine. Crow trumped weakly, his face paling under the lights, while Hargrove's boasts swelled unchecked. A litany of conquests, the merger that crushed a rival line, the discreet arrangement with a cabinet minister. the sapphire necklace rescued from a pawnshop, for a lady whose name he conveniently forgot. Each anecdote landed like a gloved slap, eliciting winces from the table. Eleanor's fingers tightening on her hoop, threading a needle with unnecessary vigour. Thorne's brandy untouched, swirling untouched in its glass. Poirot, silent sentinel, gathered the threads, the baronet's bombast a shield against the barbs, yes, but also a bellow to drown the whispers. Blackmail's spectre loomed in every evasion. The nephew's averted gaze, the actress's painted smile, the widow's embroidered restraint. And the doctor. His precision masked a grudge, Poirot sensed, like a lancet hidden in a velvet pouch. As the rubber concluded, Thorne and Lady Eleanor victorious by a precarious 50 points, the clock above the bar chimed midnight, its bells muffled by the hurtling night. Hargrove drained his flute, slamming it down with finality. To victory, then, and to those who plot in shadows, may they choke on their own bile. Bedtime, I think. Edinburgh awaits, and with it, fortunes to forge. The party rose in a rustle of fabric and farewells, Vivian blowing kisses like dandelion seeds, Crow extinguishing the gramophone with a decisive flick. Lady Eleanor slipped away first, her shawl trailing like a ghost's train. Thorne lingered to settle the tab, his eyes meeting Poirot's in a moment of unspoken accord. "Watch this one, old chap." Poirot remained, nursing the dregs of his champagne, the lounge emptying into the corridor's swaying shadows. The train plunged onward, through tunnels that plunged the world into Stygian black, emerging into meadows silvered by moonlight. Boasts at midnight, he reflected, were the confessions of the insecure. Hargrove's empire built on sand, eroding under the tide of envy. But whose hand guided the waves? The toast lingered on his tongue, bitter as aloes, to peril indeed. A soft footfall at the door, Miss Voss, perhaps, fetching a forgotten wrap. But no, the corridor echoed empty. Poirot rose, extinguishing his own cigarette with a twist. The night deepened, and with it the web tightened. Sleep, for Hercule Poirot, would be a luxury deferred. Chapter 4. The Locked Compartment. Dawn crept over the Pennines like a thief in grey flannel, smudging the horizon with reluctant light that filtered through the Caledonian Express's lace-curtained windows. The train, that iron serpent of the night, had shed its nocturnal skin, now slithering through vales where mist clung to the bracken like a lover's regret. Hercule Poirot stirred in his berth, the compartment's confines a familiar cage for his restless mind. Sleep had been a shallow brook, ruffled by dreams of locked doors and whispering shadows. Hargrove's boastful toast replaying like a gramophone needle stuck in a groove. He rose with the precision of a watch spring, uncoiling, splashing his face from the porcelain ewer, the water cold as a coroner's verdict. A faint aroma of bacon and strong tea wafted from the corridor, heralding the breakfast service, but Poirot's appetite was subordinated to curiosity. The little grey cells demanded sustenance of a different sort. Facts, sifted and assayed. He donned his waistcoat, double-breasted, pearl buttons gleaming, and ventured forth, cane in hand, navigating the swaying passage with the balance of a tightrope walker. The lounge car was deserted, save for a steward polishing silver with the fervour of a penitent, and the dining car hummed with early risers. A clergyman in dog collar perusing the Times, a pair of commercial travellers dissecting the markets over kippers. No sign of Hargroves, coterie. They slumbered on, cocooned in first-class sloth. Poirot ordered coffee, espresso if the gods of rail travel were kind, and a brioche, settling at a window table to watch the landscape unfold. Dry stone walls snaking over moors, sheep scattering like punctuation marks in the dew. It was the conductor who shattered the idyll, a wiry Scot named McTavish, his uniform rumpled as yesterday's shirt, bursting through the swinging doors with the urgency of a man pursued by hounds. "Monsieur Poirot, thank the saints, you're awake. It's Sir Reginald. Compartment A, locked from inside, they say, but, oh, it's a devil's work. Come quick." Poirot's cup paused mid-air, droplets trembling on the saucer like beads of sweat. "Locked? And the nature of this devilry, Monsieur le Conducteur?" McTavish's face, freckled and florid, drained to the hue of porridge. "Dead, sir. Stabbed clean through. The compartment, naught but a wee blade on the floor, and the door bolted. No one's been in or out since the midnight turn-down. We're fair stopped at the next signal. Police wirelessed from York, but till then, ye're the man for it, they say." The detective set down his cup with deliberate calm, though his mind accelerated like the express at full tilt. Murder on a train, a locked compartment, a solitary victim. It was the stuff of sensation novels, yet here, in the prosaic light of morning, it demanded the scalpel of logic. "Lead on, then, and say nothing to the others, Panic. It is the thief of clarity." They hastened to the first-class end, the corridor a gauntlet of half-open doors, through which snores rumbled and silk-clad limbs stirred. Compartment A loomed at the terminus, its door sealed with the conductor's master key, looped through the handle like a noose. A cluster of stewards hovered, whispering in Gaelic knots, their faces ashen as the dawn. Poirot waved them back, slipping on a pair of kid gloves from his pocket. Evidence, after all, was a jealous mistress. "The key, if you please." McTavish complied, and with a soft snick, the lock yielded. The door swung inward on oiled hinges, exhaling a breath of stale claret and something sharper, metallic primal, the copper tang of blood. Sir Reginald Hargrove lay sprawled across the lower berth, his smoking jacket rucked up like a discarded flag of truce, one arm flung wide in supplication or surrender. The wound was a cruel punctuation, a single thrust to the chest, just below the left collarbone, the blade, a silver fruit knife from the dining service, its handle embossed with the railway crest, still embedded, hilt deep, in the linen shirt now darkened to burgundy. His eyes, those imperial orbs that had surveyed boardrooms and boudoirs with equal disdain, stared sightless at the compartment ceiling, frozen in an expression of mild surprise, as if death had arrived unannounced for 11 sous. Poirot stepped inside, closing the door against prying eyes, his gaze a compass needle seeking, true north. The berth opposite was undisturbed, blankets tucked with military neatness. Hargrove had slept alone then. The table bore the remnants of last night's excess, 2 glasses, one smeared with lipstick. Vivian's shade, Poirot wagered, a deck of cards fanned like a losing hand, and the envelope, his invitation, crumpled beside an ashtray heaped with cigar stubs. No signs of struggle. The decanter upright, the washstand's towels pristine. And the door, inspected now from within, bolted with a sturdy iron latch, unforced, the key dangling innocently in its lock. Mon Dieu, Poirot breathed, circling the body with the reverence of a priest at vespers. He noted the particulars. Hargrove's right hand clenched, nails ragged as if scraped in futile grasp, a faint bruise on the knuckles, fresh as a lover's bite. The window latched tight, no draught to stir the curtain's lace. And on the floor, beside the baronet's discarded slipper, a single cufflink, gold, engraved with the lion crest, its mate nowhere in sight. McTavish hovered at the threshold, wringing his cap like a dishcloth. "He retired alone, sir, 'bout 1 o'clock, after the cards. I checked the locks myself at 2, all secure. No one's passed this way. The car's got but the one corridor, and the end vestibule's chained for the night." Poirot straightened, his moustache quivering like a divining rod. "And the others? Their compartments? Adjacent, no? Lady Eleanor in B, the Mademoiselle Lark in D?" "Aye, sir, all locked tight, nae a squeak from 'em till the breakfast bell. Young Mr. Crow in E, Doctor in F, the wee governess, Miss Voss, in G. She's the quiet sort, keeps to her cell." The detective nodded, his mind a loom weaving threads from the night's tapestry. The toast's bravado, the veiled barbs, the actress's smoke-wreathed smile. Blackmail's victim, now its apparent casualty, yet who held the knife? A phantom through the walls? Or a hand gloved in deception, turning the latch from within? Summon the passengers, Monsieur McTavish, one by one to the lounge car. Discretion above all. And preserve this scene. The police, when they arrive, will require the stage set as is. As the conductor scurried off, Poirot lingered, kneeling to retrieve a speck from the carpet. A fibre, navy blue, snagged like a guilty secret. He pocketed it, rising with a sigh. "Sir Reginald, you summoned Hercule Poirot to avert peril. Alas, the peril has claimed you first, but fear not, the grey cells, they do not sleep." The train shuddered to a halt at a desolate siding, steam hissing like a serpent's rebuke, as York loomed on the horizon, a spire piercing the mist. Whistles shrilled, signalling the law's approach, but Poirot knew the true unravelling lay not in constables' truncheons, but in the fragile lattice of alibis and lies. The locked compartment was but the prologue, the suspects, the cast yet to confess. From the corridor came the first stirrings. A door creaking, footsteps, hesitant. The governess, perhaps, or the widow, roused from uneasy slumber. Poirot straightened his tie, composing his features into a mask of avuncular calm. The game, blooded now, demanded its master. Chapter 5. The First Suspicions. The lounge car, once a haven of cognac-scented camaraderie, had transmogrified into a tribunal of taut nerves and averted gazes. Hercule Poirot had orchestrated the shift with the authority of a maestro, silencing an orchestra. Armchairs rearranged into a semicircle facing the cold hearth. A low table cleared of ashtrays, to bear only a silver tray of untouched Darjeeling and bone china cups. The Caledonian Express, detained at the York siding like a chastened schoolboy, vibrated faintly under the ministrations of railway engineers. Hammers clanging, steam hissing in rebuke, while outside a quartet of constables from the local force milled about the platform, their helmets bobbing like buoys in a storm-tossed sea. Wireless messages crackled to Scotland Yard. Fingerprints dusted in compartment A. But Poirot, waving off the sergeant major's bluster with a gloved hand, insisted, the first harvest of truths, it must be reaped here, in isolation. The train, monsieur, is its own jurisdiction, a world entire, with rhythms as inexorable as the heart's beat. McTavish the conductor was first, summoned with a discreet tap on his elbow, as he hovered by the vestibule door, his face a rictus of Highland stoicism cracking at the edges. He slumped into the proffered chair, cap clutched to his chest like a shield, the brogue thickening under duress. "Oh, Monsieur Poirot, it's a black morning for the Caledonian. Sir Reginald, fine gentleman for all his bluster. Paid his fares prompt, tipped like a laird. But murder, in first class, it's no right, nay." Poirot leaned forward, elbows on knees, his eyes twin augers boring into the Scotsman's soul. Begin at the beginning, Monsieur le Conducteur. The embarkation, 8 o'clock sharp. Who boarded with Sir Reginald? And the compartments, their locks, their latches. Tell me of the night's routine. McTavish swallowed, Adam's apple bobbing like a floater in an inkwell. Aye, sir. Sir Reginald and the nephew, Mr. Crow, arrived together, taxis from the city, trunks and all. Lady Eleanor separate, in a motor from Belgravia, looking like she'd swallowed a lemon. Then the actress, Miss Lark, flashed in like a comet, porter staggering under her hat boxes. Dr. Thorne last, quiet as a ghost, with a black bag that clinked like potion bottles. The governess, Miss Voss, she slipped on with the second-class crowd, ticket upgraded on the spot by Sir Reginald Hissel. Said she was for the wee one's auntie in Edinburgh. Poirot's moustache twitched, a Morse code of deduction. And the arrangements, compartment A for Sir Reginald, alone after the lounge. Alone, aye. He bid the others good night round one, as I said. I did the turn-downs myself, berths folded, lights dimmed, doors checked, all bolted from within. That's the rule for night runs, sir. No passing in the corridor after, vestibule chained, lavatories locked off. The train's rhythm, you see, supper at 7, lounge till midnight, then the quiet hours, naught but the wheels and the wind till dawn. A steward materialized then. Young Tommy, barely out of short trousers, his apron askew and eyes wide as saucers. McTavish nodded him in, and the boy perched on the arm of a chair, twisting his hands into knots. "Speak up, lad," the conductor urged. "The wee hours. You were on watch." Tommy's voice was a squeak, honed by coal-scuttle mornings. Yes, sir. After turn-down, I patrolled once, 'bout 2:30. All quiet, governor. Heard snoring from A, like a walrus in a gale. Miss Lark in D, she rang for aspirin. Headache from the champagne, she said. Gave it her through the crack in the door, no opening wide. Dr. Thorne's light burned late. Saw it under F's door, but no footfalls. And the governess, Miss Voss, she wept a bit, soft-like. Asked for tea at 3, but I told her dawn service only. Poirot interjected, voice soft as swan's down, yet insistent as a summons. Wept. This Miss Voss, a melancholy disposition or something more acute? Dunno, sir. Keeps to her cell, reads them penny dreadfuls. Sir Reginald engaged her last month for his niece up in the borders. Quiet sort, but eyes like saucers when he joked coarse. Maybe homesick is all. The detective nodded, filing the fragment away. Tears in the night, aspirin for the actress's excesses, a doctor's vigil, the train's rhythm, McTavish called it, an isolated pulse, compartments as cells in a floating monastery, each soul sealed in solitude. Yet one had breached the sanctity, knife in hand, vanishing like smoke through a keyhole. And the weapon? This fruit knife? From the dining service, no? Accounted for at supper's end. McTavish flushed, cap crumpling further. Aye, sir. 12 to the set. 6 for the table, 6 in reserve. Waiters collect 'em prompt. I checked the sideboard myself at close. All there, wrapped in linen, but the pantry's a wee bit lax after hours. Could have been palmed, I suppose. Or fetched from the kitchen car. Plenty of blades there for the roasts. Tommy piped up, emboldened. Not me, sir, nor Jem, he's the other lad. We was in the brake van, cards and cocoa, till the breakfast bell. Poirot rose, pacing the length of the lounge with measured steps, cane etching invisible sigils on the carpet. The suspects slumbered on, oblivious or feigning. Doors ajar now, stewards rapping with trays of bad news, ma'am. But the rhythm revealed fractures. A locked chain unbroken, yet a life severed. Blackmail's ghost, Hargrove's invitation, It pointed inward to hearts harbouring thorns. The conductor's tale painted no phantom intruder. The peril was passenger-borne, a serpent in the garden car. Merci, monsieur, Poirot concluded, dismissing them with a bow. You have illuminated the path. Now, the players must step into the footlights. As McTavish and Tommy retreated, the first door creaked in the corridor. Lady Eleanor's, her silhouette pale as parchment against the frame. She clutched a lace handkerchief, eyes rimmed red, voice a whisper of wind through willows. Monsieur Poirot, they've told me. Reginald, how? Why? The detective inclined his head, gesturing to the settee. Madam, if you would join me. The first suspicions, they demand gentle handling. Like eggs, fragile, yet full of surprises. Outside, the York constables conferred with a wire-haired inspector from the yard, arrived by special from Leeds. But Poirot knew the train's isolation was his ally, forcing truths to surface like bubbles in a shaken siphon. The grey cells stirred, sifting alibis from the chaff. The widow entered, and the interrogation's curtain rose anew. Chapter 6. Shadows of the Past. The lounge car's transformation into an impromptu confessional was complete. Velvet drapes half drawn against the relentless Yorkshire light, casting the assembled chairs in a penumbra of suspicion, while the aroma of cooling tea mingled with the faint acrid bite of fierce sweat. Hercule Poirot sat at the epicentre, a diminutive potentate on his wingback throne, his fingers steepled like the spires of Notre Dame, channeling the collective unease into channels of revelation. The York inspector, a bluff Yorkshireman named Hargreaves, with a walrus moustache that rivaled Poirot's own, and a notebook as thick as a family Bible, hovered at the periphery, pencil poised, but yielding the floor with grudging deference. Your show for now, monsieur, he'd grumbled. Yard'll want the lot by noon. Lady Eleanor Hargrove entered first, as befitted her station, a vision in widow's weeds now doubly appropriate, her bombazine gown rustling like autumn leaves underfoot. She moved with the fragile grace of a porcelain figurine balanced on a fault line, sinking onto the settee with a sigh that seemed to draw the very air from the room. Her hands, gloved in black lace, twisted a monogrammed handkerchief, E.H., the threads fraying under duress, while her eyes, shadowed by grief or guile, fixed on Poirot with the intensity of a supplicant at vespers. Madame, Poirot began, his voice a silken thread, my deepest condolences. Sir Reginald, a man of formidable presence. His departure leaves a void, no? But voids they echo with echoes of the past. If you would indulge me, your journey together, how commenced this voyage of sorrow? Lady Eleanor inclined her head, the pearls at her throat catching the light, like tears unshed. Indulge, monsieur? I fear the indulgence has been mine too long. Reginald and I, we were not bound by the tender ties of affection, but by the iron chains of convenience. Married these 15 years, since I was a slip of a girl fresh from the finishing school in Lausanne. My father, a viscount, ruined by those cursed South African mines, needed the Hargrove coffers to shore up the family seat in Sussex. Reginald required a hostess for his city banquets, a veil of respectability over his wanderings. It was a contract, Monsieur Poirot, not a courtship. The detective nodded, his gaze never wavering, drawing her out like a physician coaxing a confession from fevered lips. A contract. Yet contracts, they fray at the edges. Last night's supper, the glances across the table, the pauses heavy as lead. You spoke of solitude, madame. Was it not oppressive, this shared compartment car? She hesitated, her fingers stilling on the handkerchief, eyes drifting to the window where the train's idled engine belched lazy plumes of smoke. Oppressive, yes, and liberating in its way. This trip to Edinburgh, his notion, ostensibly for the estates. My late brother-in-law's holdings, you see, tangled in probate since his hunting accident last Michaelmas. But truth be told, it was an escape for him. Whispers in London, creditors circling like vultures, a certain lawsuit from the Argentine shipping fiasco. He boasted at cards, but his hands, they shook, monsieur. The brandy helped, but not enough. Poirot leaned forward, his cane resting across his knees like a sceptre. The Argentine? Ah, yes, the venture that sank ships and fortunes alike. But you, madame, your shadows, they predate the Pampas, no? The invitation Sir Reginald penned to me, it spoke of indiscretions from his youth. Youths that overlap with maturer indiscretions. Forgive my presumption, but the past, it clings like damp fog to the Thames. Lady Eleanor's laugh was a brittle shard, tinkling into the silence. Presumption? From Hercule Poirot, it is a compliment. Yes, the past. Oh, it is a labyrinth, is it not? Before the vows, there was another, a boy from the village, Tommy Ellis, stable lad with eyes like summer skies. Foolish, fleeting, stolen kisses in the hayloft, promises whispered under the oaks. But Reginald discovered it, you see. Not by chance, but by design. He had his spies, grooms paid to tattle, letters intercepted. He confronted Tommy with a horsewhip and a payout, £500 to vanish to Canada. The lad went, broken-backed from a fall, in the stalls the night before. Her voice cracked then, the handkerchief dabbing at lips gone pale. I learned later, from a maid's gossip, that Reginald kept a trophy, a locket, silver, with Tommy's likeness inside, and a curl of his hair. He showed it to me once, after the wedding, dangling it like a magistrate's scales. See, Eleanor, I collect what is mine. It was his way, possessive, punitive. And the blackmail you mentioned? It began then, in miniature. He held that locket over me for years, a reminder that my heart was forfeit. Poirot's eyes narrowed, the little grey cells whirring like a Babbage engine. The locket, absent from the compartment's inventory, yet its ghost loomed. This locket, madame, where resides it now? In a safe at the bank? Or closer, perhaps, to hand on this fatal express? She shook her head, a pendulous motion that dislodged a pin from her chignon, sending a tendril of ash-blonde hair curling free. Vanished, monsieur. 2 months passed, during the house party at the Hall. Servants suspected, pilfered, they said, but I wondered. Reginald grew careless in his cups, leaving drawers ajar. And then the letters began. Not to him, but to me. Unsigned, scented with cheap lavender, demanding sums for the secret of the hayloft. He laughed it off, some jealous chit from the chorus. But I saw the fear in his eyes. He boarded this train to flee it, or confront it. He suspected someone aboard knew. The door to the lounge creaked then, admitting Inspector Hargreaves with a sheaf of telegrams, his boots scuffing the carpet like an ill-timed drum-roll. From the Yard, monsieur. Hargrove's man in London confirms. Baronet wired funds yesterday, 5 grand to an anonymous account in Berne. And that locket, reported stolen to the Met, description matches, oval silver, engraved TE forever on the reverse. Lady Eleanor gasped, hand to throat, the pearls biting into her glove. Berne, but that's Swiss. Tommy, could he have returned, after all these years? Poirot rose, silencing the inspector with a raised palm, his mind a kaleidoscope turning, the locket as linchpin, blackmail's chain linking youth to this blooded dawn. Possible, madame, or a forgery, a phantom forged from faded ink. But the past, it does not die quietly. It stabs from the shadows. Thank you. Your candor illuminates. Rest now. The other lights must flicker in turn. As she departed, leaning on the steward's arm like a willow in the wind, Poirot turned to the inspector. Telegrams. They are the veins of the present. But the arteries? They pulse with history. Summon the next, the nephew, Mr. Crow. His ledgers, I suspect, bleed red with resentment. The train jolted then, a mechanic's wrench in the undercarriage, or the engine's impatient snort, and the moors beyond stirred, as if the land itself whispered of buried grudges. Shadows of the past, indeed. Tommy Ellis, the locket, the hayloft's ghost. Hargrove's empire had been built on such spectres, and now one had struck home. But whose hand wielded the blade? The widow's grief rang true, yet truth, Poirot knew, was an onion, layers peeled to tears. The interrogation marched on, relentless as the rails. Chapter 7. The Enigmatic Actress. The lounge car's atmosphere had thickened into a fog of unspoken accusations. The Darjeeling long gone cold in its pot, leaves swirling like tea-stained omens at the bottom of the cups. Hercule Poirot, that indefatigable ferret of human frailty, had dispatched Lady Eleanor with a murmur of repose, "Madam, grief is a marathon, not a sprint," leaving her to the tender mercies of a steward and a hot water bottle in compartment B. Inspector Hargreaves paced the vestibule, barking orders into a field. A telephone jury-rigged to the platform, his Yorkshire growl a counterpoint to the moor's mournful wind. But Poirot's domain remained the heart of the car, where truths were coaxed like confessions from a recalcitrant soprano. A rustle at the door announced the next act. Vivian Lark swept in like a tempest in taffeta, her crimson lips a defiant slash against the pallor of her powder. Bobbed hair dishevelled as if tousled by an amorous gale. She wore a kimono of emerald silk, pilfered, no doubt, from some continental tour's wardrobe trunk, belted loosely over a negligee that whispered of boudoir and betrayals. In one hand, a silver vanity case, in the other, a cigarette half-smoked, its ember glowing like a guilty eye. She paused in the threshold, surveying the room with the appraising glance of a leading lady, spotting a critic in the stalls, then advanced with a sway that turned the Persian rug into a catwalk. "Monsieur Poirot," she purred, sinking into the settee with a flourish that sent her kimono's hem fluttering like stage wings. The great detective, reduced to playing coroner on a milk run to the Highlands. How droll! Do forgive the disarray. Murder's such a rude awakener. I was dreaming of orchids in Biarritz when that oafish steward hammered like the last trump. Poirot inclined his head, a bow to her theatrics, gesturing to the tea-tray with a gloved palm. "Mademoiselle Lark, your poise is a beacon in this fog of calamity. A cigarette? Or perhaps something fortifying, brandy to steady the nerves. The stage, it teaches resilience, non? But even divas have their entr'actes of vulnerability." She lit a fresh cigarette from the old, inhaling with the languor of a serpent digesting its supper, exhaling a plume that curled toward the ceiling like a question mark. Brandy? Tempting, but I'll stick to nicotine. Keeps the vocal cords limber. And vulnerability. Darling, that's my stock in trade. Last night's Scarlet Pimpernel revival. I wept real tears in the scaffold scene. Audience lapped it up. But this... She waved the vanity case, snapping it open to reveal a compact mirror and a phial of rouge. This is no melodrama. Reggie, stabbed, like a ham actor in a penny shocker? Who'd stoop to such cliché? The detective's eyes, sharp as a prompter's cue, fixed on her reflection in the mirror, unflinching. yet with a flicker at the corners, as if she'd glanced too long at a ghost in the glass. Cliché perhaps, but effective. The knife, a fruit blade from the diner, pilfered like a prop from the wings. And the scene, locked from within, no understudy to blame. Tell me, mademoiselle, your role in this production. Supper's banter, the lounge's laughter. You played the ingenue to Sir Reginald's magistrate. But beneath the grease paint, what lines did you ad-lib? Vivian's laugh tinkled like shattered crystal, but her fingers, nails lacquered blood-red, tightened on the case, knuckles blanching. Ad-lib? Oh, Poirot, you're a card. Reggie was my impresario, funded the tour, pulled strings at the Drury Lane. Grateful? Immensely. But strings, you see, can tangle. Last spring in Monte, that contretemps with the Count. Reggie smoothed it, yes, with a check and a wink. But winks demand repayment. He expected encores, shall we say? Private performances, off the bill. I demurred. Charm's my currency, not capitulation. Poirot twirled his moustache, the gesture a metronome to her rhythm. Encores. Ah, the perennial demand of patrons. But Sir Reginald's appetites, they were voracious, shipping magnate by day, collector of souvenirs by night. The locket, for instance, this silver trinket stolen from his study, now the pivot of blackmail's wheel. You, mademoiselle, with your eye for the glittering prop, did it catch yours? Or perhaps a letter, scented with lavender, promising exposure of some indiscretion from your own script. Her cigarette paused mid-air, ash tumbling unheeded onto the lapel of her kimono, a grey snowflake on green silk. For a heartbeat, the mask slipped, the vivacious mask of the footlights yielding to something raw, a flicker of the chorus girl who'd clawed from the provinces to the Strand. Lavender! How poetic! Yes, the letters came, to my dressing room, slipped under the door like billets do from the gods. Vivian, darling, reveal the Monte affair, or the world learns of the other countess, the one with the husband in the House of Lords. Reggie, of course, he penned them himself, the devil. Leverage, he called it, to keep you honest, pet. Honest, as if his hands were clean. She snapped the compact shut, the click echoing like a guillotine's fall, and leaned forward, voice dropping to a conspiratorial hush that rivaled Ibsen's whispers. But the locket, that's the coup de théâtre. I saw it once, at his flat in Mayfair, after a gala. He dangled it like a carrot, cooing about a token from a bygone leading man. Not his, you see. Eleanor's swain, the stable boy shipped to the colonies. Reggie hoarded it as a fetish, a key to her cage. And now it's gone. Stolen, they say, but theft's a red herring, monsieur. I wager it's bait, dangled by Reggie to flush the blackmailer. He confided as much last night, over the cards. Someone aboard knows, Viv. Watch the shadows. Poirot's little grey cells ignited, synapses firing like flashbulbs at a premiere. The locket as lure, Hargrove's gambit, turning victim to trapper. And Vivian? Her denial rang with the sincerity of a soliloquy, yet her eyes darted to the corridor, as if expecting an understudy to burst in with rebuttals. Shadows indeed, and your shadow, mademoiselle. Where cast it last night? The aspirin at 2:30 per the steward. A headache from champagne, or from plotting the denouement? She stubbed out her cigarette with a vehemence that ground the ember to oblivion, rising in a swirl of silk. Plotting! Perished the thought. I retired at 1, bolted the door, and tossed, till dawn, rehearsing lines for Edinburgh's audition, if you must know. The Pygmalion revival, Shaw's Eliza, my dream role. No keyhole peeps, no midnight strolls. But if you're casting for killer. Her gaze sharpened, appraising him anew. Ask the nephew, Felix, poor lamb, drowning in Reggie's debts, or the doctor, with his bedside manner and bitter pills. Me, I'm just the girl Friday in grease paint. The door swung then, admitting Felix Crowe, his face a ledger of ledgers unbalanced, tie askew as if strangled in his sleep. Vivian brushed past him with a theatrical sigh, "Break a leg, darling, it's your cue," and vanished into the corridor, her perfume lingering like an alibi. Jasmine and Jasmine, heavy with insinuation. Poirot turned to the newcomer, his smile a scalpel's edge. "Monsieur Crowe, enter stage left. Your uncle's fortunes, they were the overture to this tragedy. Shall we turn the page?" Outside, the express stirred. A tentative whistle, the couplings groaning as York receded. The actress's enigma deepened the plot. Encores refused, letters leveraged, a locket's gleam in the wings. But Poirot sensed the pivot. Not mere jealousy, but a symphony of scores settled in blood. The doctor's dilemma awaited, lancet sharp. Chapter 8. The doctor's dilemma, the lounge car, now a crucible of secrets, seemed to contract under the weight of its own revelations, the air heavy with the musk of Darjeeling, and the ghost of Vivian Lark's jasmine perfume. Hercule Poirot sat poised as a conductor, awaiting the baton's downbeat, his eyes fixed on the door where Felix Crowe had just exited, his sallow face a ledger of evasions, muttering about market calls and uncle's ledgers. As he fled to his compartment, the detective's little grey cells churned, weaving Vivian's theatrical denials with Lady Eleanor's shadowed past. But the warp and weft of the mystery demanded another thread. Inspector Hargreaves, stationed by the vestibule with his notebook now dog-eared, coughed, a gravelly prompt for the next witness. Poirot raised a hand, summoning the steward with a flick of his wrist. "Dr. Elias Thorne, if you please, the physician's art, it dissects more than flesh." Dr. Thorne entered with the measured tread of a man accustomed to hospital wards, where haste meant error and error meant death. His tweed suit was rumpled but immaculate, the tie-pin a silver caduceus, glinting like a warning. 50 perhaps, with a face etched by sleepless nights and surgical precision. Crow's feet framing eyes that missed nothing, lips thin as a suture line. He carried a black leather bag, its contents clinking faintly as he set it beside the armchair, settling with the reluctance of a witness under oath. His hands, scrubbed raw, folded into a steeple, as if praying for absolution or plotting a defence. "Monsieur le Docteur," Poirot began, his voice a velvet probe, "your presence on this train, it is not mere chance, no? A physician travels, with purpose, like a priest with a missal. Sir Reginald Hargrove, he was your patient, perhaps, or your patron?" Thorne's smile was a flicker, gone as swiftly as a scalpel's flash. "Both, in a manner. I've tended Reggie's ailments these past 3 years. Gout, mostly, from his penchant for claret and pheasant. He paid well, kept my Harley Street practice afloat when the influenza season was lean. This trip, he insisted, a jaunt to keep the old ticker in check, he said. I didn't argue. His checks cleared faster than his arteries. Poirot leaned forward, his cane balanced across his knees like a fulcrum. "And last night, in the lounge, you observed the pulse of the party, Sir Reginald's boasts, the undercurrents of envy. A doctor, he sees the symptoms others miss, the tremor in a hand, the shadow in a glance. What malaise did you diagnose, monsieur, in the hours before the knife found its mark?" Thorne's fingers tightened on his bag, the leather creaking like a gallows rope. "Malaise? The whole car was septic with it." Reggie, peacocking about his empire, rubber plantations, shipping lanes, while his nephew twitched like a debtor in the dock. Lady Eleanor, stitching her grief into that embroidery hoop, every needle prick a silent curse. And Vivienne? All rouge and bravado, but her eyes darted like a cornered doe's when Reggie mentioned Monty. Me? I played my part, partnered Eleanor at bridge, kept score, stayed sober. A doctor learns to watch without wading in. The detective's moustache quivered, a seismograph of suspicion. Yet your light burned late, per the steward, compartment F, a vigil past midnight. Not tending a patient, surely. Or perhaps consulting your own conscience. The fruit knife, so precise in its thrust, almost surgical, none. A blade that knew the heart's geography. Thorne's eyes narrowed, the caduceus at his throat catching the light like a blade of its own. Surgical. You flatter the killer, monsieur. A fruit knife's a clumsy tool. Shallow blade, meant for pears, not pericardiums. I examined the body when McTavish fetched me at dawn. Single thrust, clean but lucky, missed the ribs, nicked the left ventricle. Death in minutes, no struggle. As for my light... He paused, unlatching his bag to reveal a flask of brandy, a stethoscope, and a notebook scrawled with Latin shorthand. Insomnia, not intrigue. I was reviewing case notes, gout remedies for Reggie, laudanum for a patient back in town. No midnight prowls, no knives palmed. Poirot's gaze flicked to the notebook, its pages dense as a cipher. Case notes, you say? Yet Sir Reginald's ailments, they extended beyond the gout, perhaps. Blackmail. It is a cancer of the soul. Did he confide in you, his physician, about these letters? The locket stolen? Or the whispers of lavender-scented threats? Thorne hesitated. A heartbeat too long, his fingers tracing the flask's rim as if it held answers instead of spirits. He mentioned the letters over brandy 2 nights ago in London, called them a nuisance like fleas on a hound. Thought it was a rival, some dockyard magnate fishing for leverage. The locket? He was cagey, said it was a trifle from his salad days. But his jaw tightened when I pressed. He suspected someone on this train, Vivienne maybe, for her Monty debts, or Felix who's been bleeding cash on bad trades. But he laughed it off, said he'd call their bluff in Edinburgh. Arrogance, monsieur. It's a fatal diagnosis. The detective leaned back, his mind a loom threading motives, the doctor's detachment a shield or a scalpel, the notebook a prop or a ledger of grudges, and that thrust, clumsy yet unerring. One final question, doctor. Your bag, it clinks like secrets in a vault. May I? Thorne's face hardened, but he slid the bag across the table with a shrug. Poirot opened it with the reverence of an archaeologist unearthing a sarcophagus. Stethoscope, vials of morphine and laudanum, a scalpel in a velvet sheath, sterile, unbloodied. But tucked in a side pocket, a folded letter, its edge frayed, scented faintly of lavender. Poirot's gloved fingers extracted it, unfolding the single sheet to reveal a typed message. Thorne, your indiscretion at Bart's in 28 is not forgotten. 2000, or the Lancet prints it. Burn account, by month's end. The doctor's breath caught, a hiss like steam escaping a valve. That came last week, slipped under my consulting room door. I thought it was Reggie's game, squeezing me for loyalty. He'd done it before. Little tests to keep his circle tight. But now? His voice trailed off, eyes darting to the window where the moors glowered under a slate sky. Poirot refolded the letter, slipping it back with a nod. Blackmail. It spreads like contagion. You suspected Sir Reginald, yet he lies dead, and the locket remains at large. Merci, docteur. Your candour. It is a tonic. Rest now. The next patient awaits." Thorne rose, bag clutched like a talisman, and departed without a backward glance, his footsteps swallowed by the corridor's sway. Inspector Hargreaves re-entered, thumbing his notebook. "Got a wire from Bart's. Thorne was disciplined in 28. Some mix-up with narcotics. Hushed up. Clean since, but mud sticks. What's your read, Poirot?" The detective's smile was enigmatic. A crescent moon in a storm. The doctor, he cuts deep, with words not blades, but the letter, it shifts the stage. Our killer plays a double game. Blackmailer and executioner, perhaps one and the same. Summon Mr. Crow again. He dodged too nimbly last time. And then the governess, the quiet ones, Inspector. They hum with secrets. The train's whistle keened, a banshee's wail as the engine stirred, inching toward Edinburgh. The doctor's dilemma, loyalty or leverage, wove into the tapestry, but the pattern eluded Poirot still. The locket, the knife, the lavender's whisper, each a note in a aisle symphony of betrayal. Its crescendo yet to come. Chapter 9. Echoes from the city. The lounge car, now a stage for truth stripped bare, seemed to pulse with the rhythm of the Caledonian Express itself, its walls absorbing the weight of confessions like an old confessional, worn smooth by sinners' whispers. Hercule Poirot, perched in his armchair with the poise of a falcon scanning the moors, had dismissed Dr. Thorne with a nod, the doctor's lavender-scented letter tucked into the mental ledger of his little grey cells. Inspector Hargreaves lingered by the vestibule, his walrus moustache twitching as he muttered about telegrams piling up from Scotland Yard. But Poirot's focus was a laser, trained on the next thread in the tapestry of murder. The steward, Tommy, hovered like a stagehand awaiting a cue, until Poirot's raised finger summoned the next player, Felix Crow, the sallow nephew whose ledger of life seemed perpetually in the red. Crow entered with the reluctance of a man summoned to a creditor's office, his pinstriped suit rumpled from a sleepless night, tie loosened as if it choked him. His fingers, still twisting that signet ring, betrayed a nervous tic, and his eyes, bloodshot, darting, flitted to the window where the Yorkshire moors brooded under a sky of tarnished pewter. He slumped into the settee, crossing one leg over the other with the jerky precision of a marionette, and fixed Poirot with a look that mingled defiance and dread. "Monsieur Crow," Poirot began, his voice a silken scalpel, "you return to the footlights, but the script has darkened. Sir Reginald, your uncle, lies dead, stabbed in a locked compartment, his empire of boasts silenced. You, his shadow in the city, must know the currents that swirled beneath his bravado. Tell me, what debts did he leave unpaid, and what shadows did they cast upon you?" Crow's laugh was a dry cough, like coal dust in a grate. Debts? Uncle Reggie's life was one long overdraft. Ships, plantations, mistresses. I managed his accounts, Monsieur Poirot, not his morals. As for shadows— He leaned forward, elbows on knees, voice dropping to a hiss that rivaled the engine's steam. "The city's a jungle. Sharks in Savile Row suits, circling for blood. Reggie's Argentine venture. A disaster. 3 freighters lost to storms, insurers balking at claims. I warned him, leverage too much, and you'll capsize. But he laughed, poured another brandy, and bet on Brazilian rubber. Now I'm left holding the bag, creditors calling, shares plummeting like stones." Poirot's eyes gleamed, twin beacons piercing the fog of Crow's evasions. "A bag heavy with ruin, non? And yet you boarded this train, a loyal nephew, or a man seeking resolution? Last night, the lounge car, your uncle's toast, it stung perhaps. His boasts of millions while your ledgers bled. Did resentment fester, monsieur? Enough to sharpen a fruit knife? Crow's fingers froze on the ring, his face paling, to the hue of the linen tablecloth. Resentment? I'd be a saint not to feel it. Reggie treated me like a clerk. Felix, fetch the figures. Felix, clean up my mess. But murder? He shook his head, a lock of hair falling like a guillotine's blade. I'm no killer, Poirot. I was in my compartment, end of the car, by one, bolted in like the rest. Ask the steward. I rang for water at 2, parched from the cards and his damn cigars. The detective leaned back, twirling his cane like a conductor's baton, his mind sifting Crow's words for the grit of truth. Water, a simple request. Yet the night was thick with more potent draughts. Blackmail, for instance. Sir Reginald spoke to me of letters, threats to expose his youth's indiscretions. You, as his confidant in coin, would know his enemies. Who in the city bore him such a grudge? Or was it closer? A family matter, perhaps? Crow's jaw tightened, the signet ring glinting as he twisted it. A lion's crest, twin to Hargrove's own. Enemies? Pick a dockyard from Tilbury to Tyneside. The Argentine mess cost the syndicate millions. Men like Lord Ashby, who sank his pension into Reggie's hulls. But family? His voice cracked, a fissure in the facade. There's a story, whispered in the clubs. Before Aunt Eleanor, Reggie courted a girl, some merchant's daughter from Cheapside. Broke it off when the Viscount offered Eleanor's dowry. The girl vanished. Rumours said she bore a child, sent to an orphanage. Reggie never spoke of it, but last month a letter came to the office, lavender-scented, typed, demanding 10,000 for the bastard's silence. He burned it, called it bunk, but he was rattled, Poirot. Booked this train the next day. The detective's moustache quivered, a seismograph of revelation. The locket, the letters now a lost heir, a Cheapside ghost rising from the city's ashes. This letter destroyed, you say, yet its echo lingers. Did Sir Reginald suspect its author among us? The widow, mourning her cage? The actress weaving her Monty debts into leverage? Or another quieter passenger? Crow's eyes flicked to the door, where Tommy the steward hovered, polishing a glass with unnecessary vigour. He didn't say, but at supper he watched Vivian like a hawk. Her Monty fling, you know, cost him a pretty penny to hush. And Eleanor, he taunted her about that locket, said it'd turn up in Edinburgh. Me, I kept my head down, shuffled the cards. I'm no sleuth, Poirot. Just a man trying to save his own neck from the noose of Reggie's debts. Poirot rose, pacing the carpet with the deliberation of a chess master eyeing a checkmate. The city's echoes, creditors, bastards, broken promises, wove a net tighter than the train's iron frame. One final note, Monsieur Crow. Your ring, the lion's crest, it matches your uncle's. A gift? Or an inheritance, perhaps, with strings attached. Crow flushed, tucking his hand into his pocket as if to hide the emblem. A gift last Christmas. Reggie's idea of loyalty. Blood runs thick, he said. But blood doesn't pay bills, does it? I was in my compartment, Poirot. Check the locks. Ask the boy. I'm no killer. Just a fool who bet on the wrong horse. The detective nodded, dismissing him with a wave. Merci, monsieur. The fool, he sometimes plays the knave's part unknowingly. Return to your ledgers. The truth, it has its own arithmetic. As Crow slunk out, Inspector Hargreaves re-entered, brandishing a telegram like a warrant. Yards dug up dirt on Crow. Siphoned funds from Hargrove's accounts last quarter. Small sums covered as expenses. Not enough for murder, maybe, but enough for a row. Next. Poirot's smile was a crescent moon in a storm. The governess, Miss Voss. The quiet ones, Inspector. They hum with echoes. Cheapsides, perhaps, or the orphanage's lament. Summon her. The city fades, but its shadows board the train. The express shivered, couplings clanking as the engine readied to resume its northward charge. Outside, the Moors whispered of debts unpaid, and Poirot sensed the net tightening. A locket, a letter, a knife-sharp kiss. The governess's entrance loomed, her silence a cipher yet to crack. Chapter 10. The Forgotten Passenger. The lounge car, now a crucible for peeling back the layers of human deceit, seemed to hum with the tension of an over-tightened violin string, ready to snap. Hercule Poirot sat in his armchair, a diminutive deity of deduction, his eyes gleaming like polished jet as he sifted the threads of Felix Crow's testimony. Debts, a Cheapside ghost, a lion's crest ring binding blood to betrayal. The Caledonian Express, still tethered to the York siding like a beast awaiting release, creaked under the ministrations of engineers, while Inspector Hargreaves muttered into his field telephone, his notebook now a palimpsest of scrawled motives. The steward, Tommy, hovered at the door, his apron a flag of surrender to the morning's chaos, until Poirot's raised finger summoned the next player in this grim pageant. Miss Clara Voss, the governess, the forgotten passenger whose silence was louder than the train's whistle. She entered like a shadow slipping through a crack, her dove-grey coat buttoned to the throat, a valise clutched in gloved hands as if it were her only anchor. Her face, pale as a cameo, was framed by a plain bonnet, its ribbons tied with the precision of a convent novice. Her eyes, large, hazel, rimmed with the faint red of sleepless tears, darted once to Poirot, then fixed on the carpet, where a stray thread seemed to hold her entire attention. She was young, perhaps 25, but her posture carried the weight of years unspoken. A governess's lot of invisibility in grand houses. She perched on the settee's edge, valise balanced on her knees, and waited, silent as a closed book. "Mademoiselle Voss," Poirot began, his voice soft as a confessor's, yet edged with the insistence of a metronome. "You are the quiet note in this symphony of discord, yet every note, it matters. Sir Reginald Hargrove, he engaged you for his niece in Edinburgh. No, a sudden appointment, yet you board this train. A journey laced with peril. Tell me, what did you see, what did you hear, in the hours before the knife fell?" Clara's fingers tightened on the valise, her knuckles whitening through the gloves, but her voice, when it came, was steady, low, with a faint northern lilt. Lancashire, perhaps, polished by servitude. "I saw little, Monsieur Poirot, and heard less. My place is with books and children, not cards and champagne. Sir Reginald hired me 3 weeks ago, through an agency in London for his sister's girl in the Borders. A trial, he said, to see if I suited. I kept to my compartment, G at the car's end, reading Jane Eyre. The supper din drifted through, but I stayed put. Retired at 10, bolted my door. Only stirred at 3 for tea. I couldn't sleep." Poirot leaned forward, his cane resting across his knees like a bridge to her reticence. "Tea at 3, a solace for the restless. The steward mentioned tears, mademoiselle. Homesickness, he thought. But tears, they often water deeper roots. Sir Reginald, his presence, it unsettled you, perhaps? A man of the forceful charm, with shadows trailing from his youth." Her eyes flicked up then, meeting his with a flash of something fear or defiance, before dropping back to the carpet. "He was kind enough in his way. Paid my fare, upgraded me to first class. No niece of mine taught by a third-class drudge. he said, but his jests, they cut. At King's Cross, he teased about my books, called them penny trash for spinsters. I smiled, as governesses must. But I saw the others. Lady Eleanor, so stiff, like a doll wound too tight. Miss Lark, all laughter and edges. Mr. Crow, counting coins in his head. And the doctor, he watched them all, like a hawk over a field. The detective's moustache twitched, a divining rod sensing water beneath stone. A keen observer, mademoiselle, for one so retiring. And Sir Reginald's shadows? The talk of blackmail, of a locket lost, a secret from Cheapside. Did these whispers reach your quiet corner? Clara's breath hitched, her valise shifting as if she longed to bolt. Whispers, yes, not from him, but in London, at the agency. The maids there gossiped, Sir Reginald's youthful folly, a girl jilted, a child sent away. I paid it no mind. Maids spin tales like wool. But last night in the corridor, before I retired, I heard him, with Miss Lark, outside her door. He said, "The locket's my trump card, Viv. It'll silence the lot." She laughed, sharp, like glass breaking. I slipped away before they saw me. Poirot's mind whirred. The locket's gleam a lodestar in the fog. A trump card. Hargrove's gambit, as Vivian had hinted, to flush a blackmailer. But Clara's testimony, so softly delivered, carried a weight of its own. The governess unnoticed, a ghost at the feast, her ears catching fragments others missed. "This locket, mademoiselle, you saw it perhaps? Or a letter, scented with lavender sliding under a door?" Her hands stilled, the valise a shield now, her voice barely above the train's distant clank. "No locket, monsieur, but a letter, yes, not to me, but in the agency's office, before we left. Addressed to Sir Reginald, in a drawer I tidied, lavender typed, no signature. I didn't read it, that's not my place, but the scent lingered, like a warning. I thought, perhaps it followed him here." The detective rose, pacing the carpet with the deliberation of a cat stalking a shadow, his cane tapping a rhythm of deduction. "A warning indeed, and your compartment, mademoiselle, locked, as you say, yet so near the scene. Did no sound pierce the night? A cry, a footfall, the creak of a door?" "Nothing," she said too quickly, her eyes darting to the valise. "The train's hum, my own thoughts, loud enough to drown all else. I swear it, monsieur. I'm no part of this horror." Poirot paused, his gaze lingering on the valise. Modest, scuffed, a governess's sole possession. "Merci, Mademoiselle Voss. Your silence speaks volumes, and your tears, they water the truth. Rest now. The stage may call you yet." As she rose, clutching the valise like a talisman, Inspector Hargreaves re-entered, his telegram sheaf thicker now. "Agency checks out. Voss hired clean, no record. But that Cheapside tale? Yard's got whispers of a Hargrove byblow, sent to a workhouse in '05. No name, no trace. Could be bunk, could be motive. Who's next, Poirot?" The detective's smile was a crescent of moonlight in a storm. "We pause, Inspector, to let the threads breathe. The governess, she sees without being seen, a forgotten passenger, yet her eyes hold echoes. The locket, the letter, the knife, they converge. Summon all to the lounge after luncheon. The tapestry nears its weave." The train jolted, a signalman's shout piercing the moors as the engine prepared to roll. Clara Voss slipped out, her shadow swallowed by the corridor. But Poirot's mind clung to her. The quiet ones, he knew, carried secrets heavier than valises. The next act loomed, and the killer's silhouette sharpened in the wings. Chapter 11. Threads of Deception. The Caledonian Express stirred to life, its couplings groaning like a beast roused from slumber. as the York siding receded into the drizzle-soaked moors. The lounge car, now a crucible of half-truths and veiled glances, seemed to tighten its grip on the air, the velvet drapes absorbing the weight of revelations like a sponge soaked in ink. Hercule Poirot stood at the window, his silhouette sharp against the grey light, watching the landscape blur into a patchwork of hedgerows and rain-slicked stone. His little grey cells whirred, threading the tapestry of the case. Lady Eleanor's locket-bound grief, Vivian's theatrical denials, Thorne's surgical reserve, Crow's financial desperation, and Clara Voss's quiet tears, each a stitch in a pattern converging on Sir Reginald Hargrove's blooded birth. The fruit knife, the lavender letters, the missing locket. They danced in his mind like motes in a sunbeam, elusive yet insistent. Inspector Hargreaves, his walrus moustache bristling with impatience, shuffled a fresh batch of telegrams, muttering about Scotland Yard's demands for a report by dusk. "We're rolling again, Poirot. Edinburgh by nightfall, if the rails hold. Got a wire from London. Hargrove's solicitor confirms a will. Hefty bequests to Eleanor and Crow. Crumbs for the rest. No mention of a locket or Cheapside heir. Your move! What's next?" Poirot turned, his cane tapping a deliberate rhythm on the carpet, his eyes gleaming like polished agates. "Next, Inspector, we gather the threads before they unravel. The passengers, they circle like moths around the flame of truth. Summon them all, after luncheon, as I said. But first, a task, the locket. It is the needle that sews this mystery shut. Search the compartments, discreetly, with McTavish's keys. And the knife's twin. Check the dining car's inventory again. A blade does not wander alone." Hargreaves grunted, scribbling a note, and dispatched the steward Tommy with a barked order. Poirot, meanwhile, retreated to the low table, where a single item lay like a relic on an altar. The crumpled envelope from Hargrove's invitation, its crimson wax seal cracked but defiant. He smoothed it flat, his gloved fingers tracing the lion's crest, then turned it over. A faint smudge caught his eye. Lipstick, coral pink, Vivian's shade from supper, half hidden by the fold. A careless touch, or a planted clue. His mind flicked to the ashtray in compartment A. Its cigar stubs mingled with a single cigarette butt, its filter stained with that same coral hue. The luncheon bell chimed, a silver peal that summoned the passengers from their compartments like penitents to a reckoning. They filtered into the dining car, a parade of strange civility. Lady Eleanor, her black gown now softened by a shawl of dove-grey silk, picking at a salad with the focus of a scholar deciphering runes. Vivian Lark, resplendent in a daydress of sapphire blue, her laughter brittle as she flirted with a waiter. Dr. Thorne, dissecting a cutlet with surgical precision, his eyes scanning the room like a diagnostic tool. Felix Crow, hunched over a bowl of soup, his spoon trembling as if tallying losses. And Clara Voss, nearly invisible at the car's end, nibbling toast, her valise tucked beneath her chair like a loyal dog. Poirot joined them, declining food for a glass of mineral water, his presence a catalyst for uneasy silences. He observed, as was his wont, the interplay of glances. Vivian's sidelong smirk at Crow, Eleanor's stiff nod to Thorne, Clara's averted gaze when Hargrove's name surfaced in a waiter's hushed condolence. The meal passed in a fog of forced pleasantries, the clink of cutlery a counterpoint to the train's accelerating pulse. As coffee was served, bitter Turkish to Poirot's quiet approval, McTavish approached, his face a map of Highland worry. "Monsieur Poirot, a word!" The conductor drew him aside, voice low as a confessional whisper. "The search! as ye asked. Compartments turned over, quiet-like. No locket, not in B, D, E, F, nor G, but in Miss Voss's valise." He produced a folded cloth, unwrapping it to reveal a single pearl earring, its lustre marred by a speck of dried blood. "Tucked in a side pocket, sir, and the dining-car's knives. One missing still. Server swears it was there at supper's end, but gone by dawn." Poirot's moustache quivered, a divining rod striking truth. The earring? Eleanor's, perhaps, from her mourning pearls? Or another's, planted to mislead? He pocketed the cloth with a nod. "Merci, MacTavish. Say nothing. Not yet. The threads, they knot, but the pattern emerges." The passengers were summoned to the lounge post-luncheon, assembling with the reluctance of actors facing a hostile audience. Poirot stood at the room's centre, cane planted like a standard, his voice a clarion cutting through the murmurs. "Mesdames, Messieurs, the hour approaches when deception must yield to clarity. Sir Reginald Hargrove, he summoned me to this train to unmask a blackmailer, a shadow wielding lavender letters and a stolen locket. Now he lies dead, a knife in his heart, his compartment sealed. But the clues, they whisper, a lipstick stain on an envelope, a cigarette in an ashtray, an earring stained with blood. One among you knows more than they confess." He held up the earring, its pearl catching the light like a tear frozen in time. Lady Eleanor gasped, hand flying to her ear. Bare, the mate missing. "That's mine! Lost yesterday! I thought it caught in my shawl. How?" Vivian's laugh sliced the air, sharp as a prop knife. "Oh, Eleanor, darling, you drop trinkets like breadcrumbs, but blood? That's a touch too dramatic even for me." Thorne's eyes narrowed, his voice a low scalpel. "Blood doesn't lie, Miss Lark. A nick from a struggle, perhaps, or a clever frame." Crow shifted, his signet ring glinting as he gripped the armrest. "Frame! You're all looking at me. Nephew, heir, drowning in debt. I was locked in, I swear." Clara Voss, silent till now, clutched her valise tighter, her voice a whisper. I found the earring in the corridor last night, near compartment A. I meant to return it, but I forgot. I swear, monsieur, I never—" Poirot raised a hand, silencing the rising tide of protests. "Enough! The threads of deception they tangle, but they do not break. The locket, it remains the key, a silver ghost tying youth to murder. One of you holds it, or knows, its hiding place. Speak now, or the grey cells will unravel you." The room stilled, breaths held like a chord unresolved, the train's rumble the only sound as it hurtled toward Edinburgh. Poirot's gaze swept the circle, each face a mask, grief, defiance, fear, guilt. The earring, the lipstick, the missing knife, fragments of a mosaic, its final piece tantalizingly close. The killer, he knew, sat among them, their deception a thread he would sever in the final act. Chapter 12. The Gathering Storm. The lounge car of the Caledonian Express had become a crucible of taut nerves, its air thick with the weight of accusations unspoken and truths half-buried. The velvet drapes drawn tight against the late afternoon light cast the room in a sepulchral gloom, as if the train itself mourned the unravelling of its passengers' facades. Hercule Poirot stood at the centre, a diminutive colossus, his cane planted like a lightning rod to channel the storm brewing among the assembled. The passengers, Lady Eleanor, Vivian Lark, Dr. Thorne, Felix Crow and Clara Voss, sat in a tense semicircle, their faces a gallery of masks, grief, defiance, calculation and fear. Inspector Hargreaves loomed by the door, his notebook now a tattered testament to the case's complexity, while the steward Tommy hovered like a ghost, tray trembling with untouched sherry glasses. Outside, the train thundered toward Edinburgh, the lowland hills rolling past in waves of heather and shadow, the sky bruised with clouds promising rain. The rhythm of the rails, clackety-clack, was a metronome to Poirot's thoughts, his little grey cells weaving the threads of the mystery into a tightening noose. The bloodied earring, Vivian's coral lipstick on the envelope, the missing locket, the lavender-scented letters, and the fruit knife's lethal precision. Each clue was a note in a symphony of betrayal. And now, as the journey neared its end, the crescendo loomed. "Mesdames, messieurs," Poirot began, his voice a velvet thunderclap, commanding silence as if the train itself held its breath. "We approach Edinburgh, where justice awaits with its scales. But here, in this car, Hercule Poirot weighs the heart. Sir Reginald Hargrove summoned me to unmask a blackmailer, a shadow wielding secrets from his youth, a locket stolen, letters scented with lavender. Now he lies dead, a knife in his chest, his compartment locked like a tomb. The clues accuse, yet they mislead. Let us unravel the storm before it breaks." He paced, cane tapping a deliberate cadence, his eyes sweeping the circle like a lighthouse beam. First, the earring, Lady Eleanor's, found in Mademoiselle Voss's valise, stained with blood. "A loss, you claim, madame, from a careless moment. Yet blood does not cling to innocence. Mademoiselle Voss, you found it in the corridor, near compartment A, a convenient discovery, or a planted lie?" Clara's hands clutched her valise, her face pale as chalk. "I spoke true, monsieur. I saw it gleam in the lamplight, after supper, when I fetched my book. I meant to return it, truly, but with the murder." Her voice faltered, eyes darting to Eleanor, who sat rigid, her pearls a noose tightening with each word. Vivian leaned forward, her sapphire dress shimmering like a siren's scales, her laugh a sharp trill. "Oh, Clara, you're a lamb among wolves? That earring? Eleanor's carelessness, or someone's sleight of hand? But let's talk lipstick, Monsieur Poirot. Coral, wasn't it? On Reggie's envelope. I'll own the shade, but not the crime. I was in his compartment, yes, before the cards. Shared a cigarette, laughed over his boasts. Left my mark, perhaps, but not my knife." Dr. Thorne's voice cut in, low and precise as a lancet. "Lipstick's a distraction, Poirot. The knife's the thing, clean, deep, no hesitation. Not a woman's thrust, if you'll pardon the anatomy. Look to motive. Reggie's debts crushed Crow. His dalliances stung Eleanor. His patronage chained Vivian. Even the governess. Those tears weren't for homesickness, I'd wager. And me? I had my own letter, lavender like the rest. Reggie's game or another's." Felix Crow shot to his feet, his signet ring flashing as he jabbed a finger at Thorne. "Don't pin this on me, Doctor. Yes, Uncle's debts sank my prospects. Half the city's baying for my hide. But I was locked in, same as you. And Clara, why drag her in? She's nobody, a shadow with a valise. If anyone's guilty, it's Vivian, Monty's debts, Reggie's encores. She had the run of his compartment." Clara gasped, her valise slipping to the floor with a thud, spilling a book. Jane Eyre, its pages dog-eared, and a folded handkerchief, its edge faintly purple. Lavender, the room froze, eyes converging on the cloth like hounds on a scent. Poirot swooped, retrieving it with gloved fingers, unfolding it to reveal a monogram. C.V. He sniffed it delicately, his moustache quivering. "Lavender, mademoiselle. The scent of secrets. Explain, if you please." Clara's hands trembled, her voice a threadbare whisper. "It's mine. A gift from the agency, with my wages. I use it for headaches. Lavender soothes. I swear, monsieur, I wrote no letters. I'm no blackmailer, no killer. Lady Eleanor's voice, icy as a Highland loch, cut through. Then why hide it, girl? And my earring in your bag. You skulk about, listening at doors. Reginald's jests humiliated you, didn't they? A governess, mocked by a man who ruined lives. The accusations flew like sparks, igniting tempers. Vivian's mocking laugh, Thorne's clinical rebuttal, Crow's stammered denials. Poirot raised a hand, silencing the storm with a gesture. Enough! The threads knot, but they do not break. The locket, where is it? The knife, who took it? One of you holds the final piece. Speak, or the grey cells will speak for you. A sudden jolt shook the train. A signalman's error, or a shunt, in the tracks, sending sherry glasses crashing to the carpet. In the chaos, Clara's valise tipped further, and a glint caught Poirot's eye. A silver chain, half buried under a shawl. He knelt, swift as a hawk, and drew it forth. The locket, oval, engraved T.E. forever. Its clasp sprung, revealing a faded photograph of a young man with summer sky eyes. Tommy Ellis. Eleanor's cry was a keening wail, her hands clawing at her shawl. Tommy's! How— Clara, you thief! Clara shrank back, tears spilling. I found it, madame. In the corridor, with the earring. I thought it was lost, not stolen. I meant no harm. Poirot held the locket aloft, its gleam a beacon in the storm. Found or placed? The locket ties the past to the present. Tommy Ellis, Cheapside's ghost, Hargrove's shame. But the knife, the blood, the lock, they point to one among you, weaving deception into murder. The hour grows late. Edinburgh nears, and with it, the truth. The passengers stared, faces pale as death masks, as the train roared on, its whistle a banshee's scream. Poirot's gaze locked on each in turn, the locket heavy in his hand, the storm's eye centered on the killer's heart. One final act remained, and the curtain would fall. Chapter 13. The Grey Cell's Verdict. The lounge car of the Caledonian Express was a crucible at breaking point, its air thick with the weight of revelations and the acrid tang of fear. The velvet drapes, drawn tight against the encroaching dusk, framed a world hurtling toward Edinburgh, where the spires of the city loomed like judges awaiting a verdict. Hercule Poirot stood at the centre, a diminutive titan wielding the locket, silver, engraved T.E. forever, like a gavel poised to strike. The passengers, Lady Eleanor, Vivian Lark, Dr. Thorne, Felix Crow and Clara Voss, sat frozen in their semicircle, faces etched with dread, defiance, or despair. Inspector Hargreaves, notebook clutched like a lifeline, flanked the door, his Yorkshire growl silenced by the gravity of the moment. The steward, Tommy, hovered, tray abandoned, as the train's relentless clackety-clack underscored the final act. Poirot's voice, when it came, was a clarion call, soft yet unyielding, slicing through the tension like a rapier through silk. Mesdames, messieurs, the hour of truth has arrived. Sir Reginald Hargrove summoned Hercule Poirot to unmask a blackmailer, a spectre wielding lavender letters and a stolen locket. Instead, I find a murder. A knife in the heart, a compartment locked, a cast of players bound by secrets. The clues, lipstick, an earring, a cigarette, this locket, have woven a tapestry of deception. Now the grey cells unravel it, and the killer stands revealed. He paced, cane tapping a deliberate cadence, the locket glinting in his gloved hand as he held it aloft. Let us begin with the crime. Sir Reginald stabbed in compartment A, the door bolted from within, the window latched. No phantom intruder, no secret. Passage only the passengers aboard this iron beast. The knife, a fruit blade from the dining car, missing since supper's end. The locket stolen yet found in Mademoiselle Voss's valise, beside a blooded earring. And the letters? Lavender-scented, demanding silence for sins past. Each points to a motive, but only one to murder. He turned to Lady Eleanor, her pearls a noose against her throat, her face pale as the moors beyond. Madame, your grief is real, yet shadowed by a locket's ghost. Tommy Ellis, your lost love, banished by Hargrove's cruelty. The earring, yours, found with blood. Did you seek vengeance for a heart broken, a life stolen? Eleanor's hands clenched, her voice a ragged whisper. I love Tommy, yes, but I'm no killer. The earring, I lost it, as I said. Reginald taunted me with that locket, kept it to chain me. If I'd killed, I'd have burned it, not hidden it. Poirot nodded, pivoting to Vivian Lark, her sapphire dress a defiant blaze, her lips curling in a half-smile. Mademoiselle Lark, your charm is a mask, your Monte d'Et's a leash Hargrove held. The lipstick, coral, yours, on his envelope, a cigarette in his ashtray. You visited his compartment, laughed at his boasts. Did you tire of his encores, strike to cut the strings? Vivian's laugh was sharp, a shard of glass. Oh, Poirot, I'm a flirt, not a fiend. Yes, I smoked with Reggie, left my mark, careless, not criminal. I wanted freedom, not blood. My debts, I'd charm a dozen Reggies before I'd wield a knife. The detective's gaze shifted to Dr. Thorne, his caduceus pin glinting like a warning. Doctor, your precision is surgical, your grudge against Hargrove. Narcotics, a hushed-up scandal, lavender scented in your letter. The knife's thrust so clean, your hand, perhaps, seeking to cauterize a wound? Thorne's eyes were steel, his voice steady as a pulse. I'm a healer, not a butcher. Yes, I resented Reggie's games, those letters, his tests, but my scalpel's clean, Poirot. Check it. I was in my compartment, sleepless, not stalking. Felix Crowe flinched as Poirot turned to him, his signet ring a twin to Hargrove's, his face a ledger of panic. Monsieur Crowe, your uncle's debts drowned you, his empire your cage. The city's sharks circled, and you, a desperate heir. Did you seize the knife to inherit, to escape? Crowe's voice cracked, hands twisting. I'm no murderer. Yes, I hated his yoke, debts, taunts, that cursed ring. But I was locked in, Poirot. Ask the steward. I'd sooner jump the train than kill. Finally, Poirot faced Clara Voss, her valise a shield, her eyes wide with terror or truth. Mademoiselle Voss, the forgotten passenger, yet your tears betray you. The locket, the earring found in your keeping. A handkerchief lavender-scented yours. You heard Hargrove's jests, his cruelty. A Cheapside child, perhaps. His own, cast off. Did you strike to right? A forgotten wrong? Clara's sob broke the silence, her hands clutching the valise. No, I'm no one, just a governess. I found the locket, the earring in the corridor, I swear it. The handkerchief's mine, yes, but only for headaches. I'm not his child, I'm nobody's. Poirot paused, the locket raised like a chalice, his voice dropping to a reverent hush. Nobody, non, mademoiselle. You are the key. The grey cells, they see the pattern. The locket was not stolen, it was placed. The earring, not lost, but planted. The knife, taken not by force, but by cunning. Sir Reginald baited a trap for his blackmailer, but the blackmailer turned hunter. The letters, lavender typed, were not his, but yours, Mademoiselle Voss. The room gasped, a collective intake like wind through a shattered pane. Clara's face crumpled, tears spilling as she shook her head. No, I wrote nothing. I killed no one. Poirot stepped closer, his voice a gentle blade. Listen and understand. Sir Reginald suspected a blackmailer aboard, Vivian, perhaps, or Thorne. He dangled the locket, boasted of it, to flush them out. But you, Clara, you were the shadow he did not see. The agency maids whispered of a Cheapside child. Hargroves, sent to an orphanage. You, with your quiet eyes, your northern lilt, I wired London this morning through the inspector. The orphanage records confirm Clara Voss, born 1905, mother a merchant's daughter, father unnamed but traced to Hargrove's purse. You learned this, did you not, and sought justice? Clara's valise fell, her hands covering her face. I found out last year. A letter from the matron, on her deathbed. Hargrove ruined my mother, cast us out. I took the governor's post to get close, to make him pay. The letters, I sent them, yes, to scare him, to bleed his pride. But I didn't kill him. I couldn't. Poirot's gaze softened, but his voice held firm. You did not wield the knife, mademoiselle, but you set the stage. The locket you took from his study, sent with your letters to torment him. You dropped it in the corridor with Eleanor's earring stolen from her shawl to sow chaos. But another saw your game and played a darker one. He turned to Dr. Thorne, whose face had gone ashen, his hands gripping the armchair. Doctor, you lied. Your scalpel is clean, but your heart is not. You received a lavender letter, yes, but you recognized its source. Clara's handkerchief, her agency connection. You confronted Hargrove last night, after the cards, in his compartment. He laughed, denied your scandal's truth, but boasted of the locket's power. You saw your chance not for blackmail, but for silence. You took the fruit knife from supper, waited till the corridor stilled, and used his own key, slipped from his pocket during bridge, to enter stab and bolt the door again, leaving the knife to point elsewhere. Thorne's voice was a rasp, his eyes darting to the door. Preposterous! I was in my compartment. Ask the steward. Poirot's smile was a crescent of triumph. The steward saw your light, yes, but not you. The corridor's end has a service hatch, unused, unchained, checked by McTavish this hour. You slipped through, silent as a surgeon's hand. The locket you left with Clara's things, knowing her tears would betray her. A double game. Punish Hargrove, frame the governess. Thorne lunged, but Hargreaves was faster, pinning him with a constable's grip. Clara sobbed, collapsing into Eleanor's arms, who whispered, Poor child, poor child. Vivian's laugh was hollow, Crow's face a mask of relief. Poirot lowered the locket, his voice soft as a requiem. The storm breaks, the truth shines, Clara. Your vengeance was ink, not blood. Forgive yourself. Doctor, your precision betrayed you. Justice, it rides the rails to Edinburgh. The train's whistle sang, a hymn of closure, as the city's lights glimmered on the horizon. The locket rested in Poirot's palm, its secret spent, the grey cells victorious. The curtain fell, and the express roared on, carrying redemption and ruin to its final stop. Add to chat